should be links right here. Click on that. There's like an 8-second, up to an 8-second delay, or up more, an 8-second delay or more. You can, okay. All right. Well, we'll start in a second. You look like that robot from Empire Strikes Back, the cyborg, with the band. Hello. There's pizza and stuff in the hallway. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Welcome to dfwmobile.net. If you would follow us at dfwmobile.net on Twitter or go to our website at dfwmobile.net. Yeah. This is our leadership team. They couldn't be here today, except for myself. If it wasn't for them, we couldn't be here. Our next meeting, we're going to have Sean Weisfeld. He'll be talking about Azure Mobile Services. He's a Microsoft developer evangelist or technical evangelist based in Austin. So definitely come check him out. And he'll be telling us all the latest and greatest for mobile services. Tonight, your speaker, I guess I'm kind of introducing myself. I'm a senior programmer and team lead for Infinity Interactive, Xamarin certified developer, so I am certifiable, and father of two. If you want to, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Sparkman, or email me if you have any questions. So I was going to write a talk summary, and then I didn't. But tonight I'll be talking about Apple's WatchKit and Microsoft Band, and I'll go a little bit into Android wearables, but I'm not going to do a demo on those. So I'm sure everybody's heard the big news, Apple Watch, the latest and greatest, right, from Apple. It's coming on the 24th, so that's next week, right? Next week?
24th this week after next.
You sure? Yeah. Okay, one more week. Yeah. That's right. Sorry.
Do you have a calendar app on your watch?
No, yeah, I do. I've never used it, though. All right, so the screen sizes, they're going to have 42 millimeter and 38 millimeter. Those are our resolutions. Can everybody see that? So I won't have to read that off to you guys. So Xamarin has had a, well, let's go back. So Apple has a WatchKit. They have their own SDK for it. It's a different namespace as far as C# terms goes. All the controllers are different. They all prefixed with WK, so you don't use your normal controls. It's very limited what you can do. So I'll get into the specifics of that. And Xamarin, as usual, is always up to date. They've already released the WatchKit SDK into the stable channels. For a while there, you had to have a special build of Xamarin Studio, but they did have it on their website for Xamarin Studio to be able to run WatchKit SDK. So how does WatchKit work? So there's actually 3 projects you have to have for WatchKit to work. You have your Watch extension, which actually runs on the iPhone, and you have the Watch app itself, which is on the wearable, the watch, right? And that just contains assets and the storyboard. It's really small. So, and then you have your iOS parent app, which bundles your watch app and your watch extension. So you do have to install and have a full-blown iOS iPhone app to be able to have a watch app, WatchKit app.
Does it work with Android?
Does what work with Android?
WatchKit. Or the
So, so yeah, Apple Watch works with Apple products, and specifically iPhone. You can only have it working with an iPhone. It has to be an iPhone 5 or higher. So there's no cross compatibility. Apple really doesn't do cross compatibility. So if you want an Apple Watch, you have to have an Apple phone. So are there any questions about this? So whenever you do have a WatchKit app, most of your code, anything, backgrounding has to be running within the iPhone app. You can do some stuff in the extension. There is no backgrounding though. So, but there is a shared, a seamlessly shared storage between the iPhone app, the WatchKit extension, and the WatchKit app. So, and that's probably too small to see. So in the application life cycle, we've got 3 events, which is awake, will activate, and did deactivate. And there is no leniency when you close the app, it closes, right? However, if you don't close the app all the way, you won't always get an awake, which is the first event. And the will activate is right before the app, the UI is active, so it has to be something really quick. I don't recommend putting any web calls in there. So there are some limitations for the Apple Watch. You can't access the heart rate, and you can't do anything like the accelerometer or anything nice like that. You can't use its GPS. So Sad Panda is, huh? Sad Panda is sad. The rumor is that they will open this stuff up in the later SDKs. What is it? The WDC is it called? They're going to hopefully release more to app developers. We'll find out though. We'll just have to wait and see. Some other limitations. You have to have an iPhone. It won't run without an iPhone. So even if you do connect it, install it, it has to run with an iPhone. Things like your glances won't update, but they'll still be. You can only put 20 megabytes of image cache. I haven't really figured out what that means exactly. There is an image cache that you can access, and I think that's what it's referring to, and you can add to it, and that stores it on the web, on the Watch app, so it can access it easily, not across the wire or wireless. You can only use what's in the WatchKit libraries, no core graphics, so you can't draw custom graphics. Oh, yeah, no access to core graphics. And you can't write a watch app that's a watch face. You'll know what watch faces are. So they've got like, was it 10 different watch faces, and they have like backgrounds for the watch, and it's like there's one with a butterfly, and there's one with like the temperature and the time and different things like that. So you can't write a custom watch face. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, more limitations. All right, so you can't perform any processing, like I mentioned before, after being deactivated, so no backgrounding. The Apple Watch does have sound, it does have speakers, but you can't play anything with an app. So there's no app. You can't make it vibrate for like notifications. Well, you can have it vibrate for notifications. You can't make it vibrate within the app. You can't do anything like make music play. If you're familiar with the, this is the digital crown right here. It allows you to scroll, and then you can scroll by swiping. But you can't tell the difference. Not that. I guess you could do something cool with the digital crown versus the regular scrolling, but it doesn't let you distinguish the two. And notifications to the watch, you can't do notifications to watch only or iPhone only. So they populate on both. Any other questions on that? It seems like a lot of limitations, but now we're going to get into what you can actually do with it. So here's the fun part. So these are the controls you do have. And these, you can't do custom controls. You can't inherit from controls. Unless they're WatchKit controls. So we got label, button, switch, slider, images, separator, maps, which I thought was interesting. It lets you have maps. You can group things together. And then there's tables. And then device. I'm not really sure why this is considered a control. It lets you get information about the device, like resolution, scale. Oops, wrong way. Menus. You'll find that there's lots of menus in the Apple Watch. And then text input, which I didn't get the chance to play with too much. So let's do a demo. All right. Hello. All right, so let's start a new solution. Not quite used to this resolution. So who's here familiar with Xamarin Studio? All right, so Xamarin created an IDE similar to Visual Studio that you can run on OS X or on Windows for writing their. Okay, who's familiar with Xamarin? Maybe I should go take that question. All right, let's back up a little bit. All right, so Xamarin, C# on 2.6 billion devices. Sounds pretty cool, right? My laptop's possessed and likes to pop out of slide mode. Yeah, don't need that, don't need that. All right, so in a typical app development IT department, you have three silos. You'd have to have iOS apps written in Objective-C on Xcode, Android apps written in Java in Eclipse, and if your company's good enough or awesome enough, you can write Windows apps in C# and Visual Studio. There's not too many companies that are doing that, though, app-wise, unless you're doing like WPF. So the other solution is write once, run anywhere, right? So you can use JavaScript, Lua, HTML, ActionScript, and then you put all that into a black box, and then it outputs an app, and it may or may not work as you expect it. May work differently on different devices. Not exactly the best solution. I've tried a few of them out, and maybe if you're just like doing content, it works. And then there's Xamarin's unique approach. So you can do shared C# backend, iOS C# UI, Android C# UI, Windows C# UI, and you write everything in C#. And you have access down to the bare metal, if you will, and can access any of the API that you would through Objective-C or Java. They're all bound through Xamarin. So, but the advantage is though, like you've got your back end, which is probably got a REST call, database calls, hopefully not database in your apps, but some form of back end. You have business logic, validation logic. That can all be written once in C# and shared. And then you go and you write the UI because people expect Android to behave a certain way and they expect iOS to behave a certain way. You need to have your tabs in the right place or the buttons in the right place, and it has to look right or people get angry. And people don't like their cheese being moved. They like their cheese where it's supposed to be. So that's why the UI is separated. And so you have access to these core .NET framework libraries, and then you have the UI or the platform-specific ones like Windows Storage. The same with iOS. You have the core .NET stuff. So you have .NET, system.NET, system.io, system.link. And once you go link, you don't go back. And then system.xml. And then you have all the other ones, right, that are specific to the platform, which there's a lot more than was listed. But those are some of the examples. And the same with Android. So anything you can do in Objective-C, Swift, well, don't use Swift yet. It's not quite done. But and Java, you can do it in C# with Xamarin. So that's how C# runs on 2.6 billion devices. And then, does that answer your question enough? Help you?
Doesn't it have some limitations as far as implementing all those APIs you have on the actual Java or the C? I mean, I haven't looked into Xamarin for a while, but that was a limitation when I first looked at it.
I haven't seen any limitations. So what they're doing is they have a binding class, and so they're how do you mean limitations? You mean like parts of it missing?
Yeah, they didn't, I guess, have some kind of a binding to all the libraries that were in Java.
I haven't run into any instances where that's happened, and I don't know of any that are.
Right. I mean, they weren't necessarily things that I was like, oh yeah, like I have to have. But it specifically said, hey, like there are some things. That was quite a while ago.
Yeah, I haven't run into it, and I haven't seen anybody talk about it or complain about it. So as far as I know, it's all there.
In general, Xamarin's been pretty good to adopt all of the major updates and everything else like that, and provide bindings to it on basically on release day schedules. So if I know with like Lollipop and iOS 8, as soon as that was released, they had bindings ready for it.
Right. So some of the limitations you might run into is like on the iPhone, they do what's called ahead of time compilation, and they use this thing called a linker that if you put the whole .NET framework in an app, the app would be huge. So you don't want to have the .NET framework in every single app. So it pares down what's in there, and there are certain settings you can change. And then sometimes if you don't set it correctly, it has issues with generics in reflection. But it's really simple if you just, it's like a page of documentation, and then it's really not a problem anymore. So that might be a limitation. And then for Android, it does have its own VM running. So I haven't run into any limitations with that. So slip back over here. Okay, so we were in the demo. Okay, so to start out with a WatchKit app, you can start with an existing app, or you can just start a new app. In this case, I'm going to start a new app. Let's just pretend like this is a full-blown app, though, for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to name my watch app. And is there a setting for... Yeah, Xamarin Studio isn't really designed for this resolution, unfortunately. We kind of have an older projector here. So this is our single view application, which hold on, I'm going to unplug this for a second and plug it back in. That didn't work. Okay. Did I kill the feed?
I can't see it right now. I see your face.
Okay. So the solution pane has issues of this resolution. But here's my app.
You may need to reactivate the display. Oh, finish your vision.
All right, so here's our app. And just imagine like there's actually stuff here besides the cookie cutter starter stuff. So if we wanted to add WatchKit to an existing app, we'd come to our solution. We'd select Add New Project. Did we? Okay. Where was I? Oh, we go to iOS extensions, and we have a WatchKit app. Choose Next. So I talked a little bit about glance and notifications. So you can have a custom glance, which is sort of a read-only view that you can swipe through. I'll get into a little more detail in a second. And then you can have a custom notification view, which is when you get push notifications. And you can do local and remote notifications for that. So we'll create the app, the WatchKit app. And we'll also create an extension. And so the storyboard, if you're not familiar with iOS UI design, or kind of the WYSIWYG design for iOS is done through storyboards. Sometimes you can use a XIB, an XIB, and those are for individual screens, but the storyboard has the flow of the app kind of encapsulated in it, as well as the different scenes or screens. And so we've got the standard interface right here. We've got the notification, and this is a static notification. And then we have the dynamic. I believe that's the dynamic one. Yeah, the dynamic. Let's see what this is. Yeah, that's the dynamic notification screen. And then we also have the glance right here. And that's kind of limited to, well, it's not kind of, it is limited to kind of a body and a title. So let's go ahead and add some stuff to the app itself, the app screen. So I'm going to add a label. kind of stretch that out there. Probably should be using auto layout, but just for this demo, I'm going to WinForm it. And if you haven't done a lot of iOS development, it's a little similar to Windows Forms, unless you're using auto layout. And that's still similar to Windows Forms development, where you're having to use width and top and left. So let's go over to Properties. I'm going to set the name, and we're going to call this count text. If you've done any Windows Forms development, you're familiar with that. And then I'm going to change the button and not select it. Increment button. Save it. And then I'm going to double click the button to give us a event handler activated. And if you'll notice here, we've got this WK interface. And all of these classes, the control classes, will be prefaced with that. And that comes from the WatchKit. If you're familiar with iOS development, you know that standard apps use UIKit, and then WatchKit uses the WatchKit namespace. So let's make a simple app. Count text, and we'll set the text. So I'm using a string format to set the text, and I'll go ahead and put a class scope variable count. Oops. Complete. All right, so that should set the label to the count, and we'll increment the count with a plus plus. And so to test this app, I'm going to set the extension. Why is it not letting me do that? Well, I thought it was the app. Let's see if it's the extension. I don't think it's the extension. I could be wrong, though. I've only done this like 5 or 6, 7 or 8 dozen times. So there's a very basic app. So any questions on that? Just keep in mind that you have to have an iPhone 5 or greater to pair an Apple Watch with. You can't use an iPhone 4S or 4. So they still have an emulator for 4S somewhere, or not. Okay. So let's go back over to the slides. So glances. My laptop's possessed. I swear I didn't switch back. All right, so glances. So you can only display data. It's not interactive, so you can't put a button on there. Must fit to one screen. So on the other app, you can have a scroll or a table and scroll through that. This is set. You can't scroll at all. In fact, if you tap on the screen, it starts the Watch app itself. So let's take a look at that. So go back over the storyboard. And remember, when you're creating the project, you have to check that box that says included. You can drag one over from over here if you didn't create one to begin with. Um, all right, scroll this way. Nope, this isn't gonna work. We'll see if I break the solution pane again. Nope, all right. So we're good to go. So I'm gonna add a label up here in the group one. My watch app. Oh wait, is that the name? Probably hit the name, didn't I? Nope. Okay, that's the text. I got the right thing. Okay, good. All right. Oops. And then I'm going to add an image. And drag it out to expand the area that I can fit it in. And then I'm going to drag. No, I don't want to drag my whole documents. An image in there. And select that image. And I'll change it so it's aspect fit. All right, so to get to a glance, you have to start the app a little differently. So if you select the project and select run with, and then you'll want to select custom parameters. So it'll start it at the glance. So you can actually go into the emulator and get to the glance manually, but this is a lot faster. So I ran the custom parameters and I select the interface I want to start with, and I select the glance, and then I hit, well, I can actually save it. So we can come back to it later. And then execute. And there's my glance. Any questions about that? So you might use a glance for, if you were like a weather app, you might save the current weather to it. So the iPhone app can background and update, or the extension can update the image or whatever, and have like a weather picture. So you could like put a label on here with the temperature, and then maybe you want to like rain in the background, you can switch it to rain and something like that. So it's like a quick glance. So you're like
Non-interactive widget is probably the best way to describe it.
yeah. So if you're what platform are you familiar with? Okay, so think of it like a tile for your start screen. Yeah, so it doesn't do anything. You can just start it. So it's informative. It's supposed to be informative at a quick glance. So that's why it's glance. So you just glance at it, look at it, and you're just swiping through the different glance views, right? So you may not actually want to interact with the app. You may not want to pull up the app. You just want to see what the weather is, right? You don't want to have it do the API call because it uses battery. So, and you have to wait for it to load. This is much faster. It doesn't look like it's much faster because I'm running it on an emulator and building it, deploying it, opening it, but it's much faster on the device. Any other questions about that? So I'm doing really basic examples here to just try to get the concepts. So I don't want to get too dug down deep into what you can do with it because there's a lot you can do with it. Even though you don't have core graphics on the watch itself, you do have it in the iPhone app, and you could, and well, not in theory, in actuality, generate an image, right? Instead of doing like a custom UI, which you can't do, and push it over to the watch using that shared storage and access it there on the watch for a glance that's custom. And I believe, let me see if I can find it. There's a whole website dedicated to what people have done with like glance and notifications for Apple Watch. So if I can't get it real quick, I'll just skip. So can you all see that? So these are some of the things that people have done with Apple Watch. And these are all apps. So like do book space. I'm not really sure what that does, but car park. So it like sets notification reminders for you to go refill your meter, right? And you can switch between your glances. I think there's a glance. And see how much time you have left, right?
Now, does the Apple Watch itself have some kind of background process, or is it something that?
So Apple Watch doesn't allow you to do backgrounding at all. You can let's see here. Stop it. Okay. Oh. Oh, I can't get back to my slides. I guess it doesn't like slides. There we go. Okay. So for a WatchKit app, there are three parts, right? There's the extension that runs on the phone. There's the Watch app UI, which is like the storyboards and the images. And then there's the iPhone app itself, which allows you to do like, and you could have a full-blown app, but you can also do administration for the app or for the WatchKit app. And you can do backgrounding over here. And then there's a shared storage between the Watch app and the rest of the project. And there's some limitations on the size, but you do all your backgrounding over here because you don't want to use your battery on here because that's not going to last a day if you do that. That's probably going to last you like a few hours. And consumers would be pretty angry if their watch only lasted a couple hours. People are angry if their phone only lasts a few hours or their laptop only lasts a few hours, right? But that's glances, right? And then notifications. So your notification looks like this. You've got your icon right here, your app icon, your alert text, which is just like any other notification, and then a dismiss. But then you can have dynamic notifications.
Quick question on the notifications. Is this scrollable? Or can you only fit within the region of the screen?
I don't remember. I haven't put one long enough to scroll. I know specifically the documentation specifies that you can't scroll on a glance.
Right.
So you could.
That's supposed to be arbitrary and static.
So you probably can scroll on a dynamic notification. Probably. I'm not sure. So moving my cheese again. Okay. So in the cookie cutter app, they provide a notification payload. If you've ever messed with push notifications for iOS, they kind of look like that. But they provide a sample one. No! Solution pane. Okay. There it is. Okay. So in order to trigger, oh, stop running. Yeah. All right. So in order to trigger or start into a notification, we can go back to that custom run parameters and select our payload, which I just showed you. It's a .json file. And then because I'm going to show it to you again. And hopefully this will work. Okay, so I don't think there's notification scrolling. It looks like it does an ellipse. But that's the generic notification. If you look at the spinning wheel of death, you can actually add buttons and identifiers, and that will pass the payload into the app itself, which you can do different things based off of it. If you're familiar with notifications, there's parameters you can pass into an app, which are useful because, like, if you want to send, say, Facebook wants to send a notification that you just got a like on your your status. When you click that notification, you want it to open that status. You don't want it to open the Facebook main app page and have to navigate to it. So this actually lets you do buttons, which is kind of cool with the static one. And it passes that identifier in there. And the spinning wheel of death hasn't gone away. So if you're familiar with OS X, spinning wheel of death is kind of like the hourglass, or not familiar with it, Windows. OS X doesn't like me. Am I still broadcasting? Screen sharing, whatever? Okay. Hello, computer. Okay. Let's close the app delegate. Where is my solution? There it is. Okay, well, I'm going to unplug this for a second. Normally Xamarin's much more stable. It just doesn't like this resolution. I promise. Okay. I don't think anything's stable at this resolution. It's certainly not my sanity, because I couldn't program at this resolution. I'm sure there was some point in time that I was programming at this resolution, and this was great. This was huge. I'm spoiled now. All right, so let's pretend like that didn't happen, and I'll show you dynamic notifications eventually. Demo gremlins, I swear. Okay. I'll put a button in here. Okay, we don't want to put that big of a button. Delete the button. All right, I'll put a label in here. And we'll set my WatchKit app. Put a button. And then we'll run with custom parameters notification. I have a build error now. Hello, build error. Errors. Buttons are not, oh, that's right. No buttons. That's right, it's an image. So you can't have custom buttons to do custom things. But you can do images. So say we'll go back to that car parking meter notification. Say we had a 15-minute warning and a 5-minute warning. We could have different images based off of the information in the payload. Let me first show you this. So in the interface controller, we have a class, and that's kind of like the code behind. If you're familiar with ASPX, that's kind of the inherits tag, or the code behind for Windows Form, and that's where all our logic goes. So this is the UI designer, and then we specify. It doesn't have to name this. This is the name of the class. If I was to change the name, okay, notification. And we just change that. And hello. Okay. And build all. Okay, well, it's trying to prove me wrong. That's where the logic goes for the notification controller. Hit the wrong button. No, not Slack. Go away. Quit. All right. Run with notifications. Okay, sorry about that. We're going to run it with the notifications. Going to pull it up. I swear this worked last night. All right, you know what? Forget this. It doesn't like me today. I updated Xamarin last night. I don't know what I did. Yeah, never update. Rule number 1 of presentations, never update the night before. Rule number 2, never update the day of. So it's acting weird, and I don't know why. So we're gonna go on the Microsoft Band. All right, so who here is familiar with Microsoft Band? All right, so Microsoft came up with a cross-platform smartwatch. So that means it works with Android, it works with iOS, and it works with Windows Phone, which is awesome. And they have an SDK for all of them. I'm going to use the Microsoft one since I already paired it with my Windows phone, and I didn't feel like resetting everything and trying it with any of my test devices. The API is pretty much the same. There's some minor tweaks because it uses await and async. Yeah, who's familiar with await and async? Y'all think it's awesome? Okay, good. All right, so yeah, there's some minor differences just because of that. Um, you have access to the sensors. You can create a tile. You don't have an app per se. It's a tile with all the notifications that you want to send it. So there's not a real app, and it's kind of small. So you couldn't really do a full-blown app on it. It typically gives me about 48 hours of battery life, and I charge it for like 15 minutes. So if I'm sitting or something or taking a shower. And so let's pop over to Visual Studio. And I've got several solutions I already wrote. I'm not going to write them on the fly. And they're so small, I'm not going to do my little Git trick. So let's start out with the accelerometer. So I haven't really thought of any applications for the accelerometer except for the fact that you could maybe have a game where you have to wave your arm or do some kind of specific exercise using the band. But it's pretty simple. You start out pretty much everything with, okay, well, let me back up. The SDK for Visual Studio, you bring it down with a NuGet package. If you're using Xamarin, it's in the component store. And the component store SDKs for iPhone and Android are just a binding. We talked about before. It's just a binding around the native libraries. So they actually wrote these in Objective-C and Java. So if you want, you can actually do a Java app, write a Java app, and use the SDK for band. Or you can write an Objective-C app and use the band. So that's pretty cool. And Microsoft actually went to that length. I don't see too many other people doing that. Feel free to correct me. So we get the NuGet package. And let's see here. I'll pull it up here. And it's just Microsoft.band. All right, so now that we've got that, or we already had it, we can detect how many bands we have paired with the phone. I don't see too many people having more than one. But we can, if there are, detect if there's more than one. And that's actually paired. So if it's not on or not, the Bluetooth is off, you will get 0 bands. And so you want to handle that event. In this case, I just display a text message to a label or a text block in XAML terms. And then we want to connect to it. And this gives us an iDisposable object, so you can use using. In this case, I'm not. If y'all are familiar, who's familiar with using? So using is a statement, it's a scope block, and once you exit the scope block, it automatically calls the dispose method and cleans up whatever mess you may have made. I know I make lots of messes when I'm coding. And then we can get a reading changed event. So we subscribe to that, and then we start the readings. So you have to do both of those. You can't just start getting the readings. And so my reading changed. I get this. Well, someone actually used the event arguments for a change. If y'all are, I know a lot of people don't, but we actually have to have a band accelerometer reading. And so that's our sensor reading. And we get an X, Y. Well, let's just pull this up. No, we can't do that. That would be smart. come over here. So we have the acceleration x, the acceleration y, and the acceleration z. So it's moving. So if you move and stop, it goes back down. And it's always moving a little bit. So you have to bear with it. And so what I'm doing is accessing the UI thread. If you're familiar with doing XAML, WPF, Silverlight, this is how I access the UI thread to edit the controller parameter of text and set the text to what X, Y, and Z is. So let's go ahead and actually let's project the screen first so you can actually see what I'm doing. Let's unlock my phone. Yes, I want to project it. Do I want to know? Let's see here. I want to see what's on my screen before I show you. Oh, okay, that's not bad. Okay. All right, hello, computer. Now I broke my computer again. Okay, so let's start the app. Okay, hello, computer. What did I do? Another advice for presenting or demoing, always restart your computer before the presentation. You don't want to have to do it during the presentation. Well, that's still working. I'm going to restart Visual Studio. I'll fix that if I get Visual Studio to work. All right, so now you guys are going to get to see me restart Boot Camp in Parallels. Exciting stuff. So quit. I might end up restarting in Boot Camp. Yeah, so it's my Boot Camp drive as a VM in parallel. So I can actually switch to Boot Camp, boot into Windows 8.1, and then also use it virtually. So if you're using Visual Studio to develop, if you're using Visual Studio to develop iOS apps, you have to have Apple hardware. And so you can technically run the build server on like a Mac Mini and then connect to the Mac Mini. But to use the simulator, you have to do something like VNC or have multiple keyboards, or it's crazy. So it's best to run Visual Studio from a VM if you're going to use it that way. I really wish Apple would let you compile their apps on other hardware, but they are kind of particular to us using their stuff, They got to get their money somehow, right? No, I don't want that. No, no. Which is the thing that lets me see all my screens?
3 fingers down.
3 fingers down?
Disable.
No.
Try.
No, I'll just. Up? Up. Okay. So if you're not familiar with our user group, we broadcast everything on Google Hangout on air, which has until recently been very smooth. All right. Well, let's see if I can get this to work. Project my screen. Well, that's really annoying. It doesn't seem like Visual Studio likes project my app screen. Hmm. All right. Can y'all see my screen from back there? Okay. Hmm?
Why don't you bring up your video screen up on that, and then you can hold your phone up and use that as a guide.
Okay. I think I figured it out. Well, I did this, what, 2 meetings ago, I think, and I didn't have any problems with it. But this meeting, apparently, Visual Studio and project my screen weren't working. After I take it out of full screen, it seems to work. And now there's an error. Why is there an error?
You may also want to check to make sure that the USB device is still sharing back into Parallels. Or the Parallels, there you go.
Okay. There we go. All right. Can everybody see that? Is that too small? All right. So what I've done is created 2 buttons, a run and a stop, and you saw that first set of code, the run click, right? So that added the reading changed event, subscribe to that, and we started the reading. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. Can y'all see that? All right. All right, so you see the numbers on the screen, that's the accelerometer. And as I move up and down, the numbers get bigger, right? And then let's look at the code for the stop. I can stop doing that. So I do a stop reading. And since I'm not using a using statement because I'm using multiple events, I have to call the dispose manually, right? Otherwise, if I try to access it again, it's going to throw an error, and it's not going to be pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button, and it's done. So that's how simple it is. It's pretty simple. Now I'm going to go and show you a different app. Wait, I'm going to stop the app first. Then I'll show you a different app. All right. So heart rate, the heart rate app. So you get to see my heart rate live. See if I'm nervous, lying, whatever. As I present, you can see my heart rate. So let's look at how I did that. So I've got that same text block, status, and then I've got two buttons, get heart rate and stop, green and yellow or green and red buttons. Don't ever do that in a real app. It's ugly. Don't use the primary colors. No. All right. So let's look at the heart rate click. So that's when I click the get heart rate button, the green button. Same thing. I'm getting the bands, making sure that I have a band, and then connecting to the first one. You can actually look at what the band's called. There's a really great sample app with the SDK on the SDK website that has like a drop down. You can select which app you're connecting or which band you're connecting to. Like I said earlier, I don't know why you'd have more than one band. I guess if you wanted to have a game that used both arms or something, that'd be pretty cool, right? So I think there's better devices for that. Same kind of thing. We're connecting. So we add a sensor manager. If you looked before, we had a sensor manager before. Can you all see that? I can blow the text up a bit. It's already a super tiny screen. So we have the sensor manager property, and then we have a heart rate property, and we subscribe to that reading changed again. I'll show you that in a second. And then we start the reading just like we did before. So we turn on that sensor, and instead of the I band accelerometer reading, it's I heart band or I heart rate reading. These class names were never intended to be read aloud. So I'm sorry if I'm messing it up. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking the sensor reading, and instead of the X, Y, and Z, I've got a heart rate, just a number. It also includes the quality and the timestamp. So it only gets the heart rate every so often. It doesn't do it as fast as the accelerometer because you saw the numbers changing faster than I can move my arm. And then I'm just setting that status text again, really basic. So let's start this up. Get to see my heart rate live. Right. And there it is, 75. So I think I'm healthy. Not too nervous. You'd get a little higher if I was nervous.
Oh, don't encourage me.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go. So okay. All right. So I'm gonna show you the stop code real quick. It's the exact same thing we did before. There we go. Stop click. Except I'm actually saying it stopped. So stop reading. Or this isn't gonna work because I have the wrong sensor. All right. That'll teach me to copy and paste code. Start. Oh, that went up. Having to fix my bugs live. Wow, that brought my heart rate up. Okay, let's stop that before it gets any higher. Okay. All right. So, do you have any questions about that?
We see how accurate that is. I could show a couple of pictures from.
Well, we'd have to have a more sophisticated, like what is it, a chest strap? They're called. There's one that's got Bluetooth.
Oh.
It's like a pulse. It's called Pulse. If you have one of those lying around, we can test it out.
I'll just gonna try to do embarrassing things to see if we can get you embarrassed.
Okay. All right. So let's close that. Let's stop the app and close. I hit the wrong button. As you can tell, I use a mouse mostly, not the touchpad. All right. So let's look at the band. I will walk around with this since I can't really. There's no emulator, unfortunately, for the Microsoft band, but it's got the time, and then it's got tiles, which if you're familiar with Windows Phone, it's kind of the same look and feel. They're limited just like, well, not just like, but they're limited a lot like the Apple Watch. You can only have an image on there. You can change the, oh, I put it on backwards. You can change the image. And then the number, so on Windows Phone tiles, you can set the number. But in this one, it's based off of how many notifications are unread. And that's the only number it'll display. You can't overwrite it. So let's take a look at the code here. And scroll up. So once again, we're seeing how many bands you have, making sure you're not crazy and have like 5 of them. Then we're connecting to it like we did before. This time I'm using the using statement because it's all in one method. So each tile has a unique GUID to it, okay, or GUID, whichever pronunciation you're used to. You create a band tile object. In this case, if you haven't guessed, I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan. Let me blow that up in case you couldn't already read Star Wars on there. And you provide it with two icons. And there's a large one, which is 46 inches, and then the small one is 28 inches. And there's some limiting on how the coloring, what colors you can have. And you can grab that from whatever URI you want from within the actual app on the device. And then you can use 2-band icon to create the right kind of object you need from a writable bitmap. It would be different on iOS and Android. And then with that object, you add it tile async. And then this is just telling the app user. That has nothing to do with the band itself. And then I'm going to go ahead and send a notification to it so you can see that the notification works. And with notifications, you get a tile which shows up in the top. It's purple or whatever your default color is. And then there's the message body itself. Okay. So let's run that. All right, so, okay, I push publish. I already had it installed. Let me uninstall it first. All right, publish. And then it asks, so I haven't played with it on the iPhone or the Android yet, but on Windows Phone it asks you permission to actually install that. And this is the icon image right here that'll show up on the screen. But the actual icon that I used is that, and I don't know why it makes it white. I've been looking for an answer for that, but I couldn't find it out. It's probably because I'm using too many colors for my PNG, and it's just converting it all to white. I know that you can have some colors in the tile. The Starbucks app uses colors. on the band. So there are some colors. I think it's probably like 16 colors limitation. But that's the converted logo. Oh, I should turn that off. Speaker advice number 4, turn off notification sounds on your phone, even if you're demoing with it. Oh. So I go ahead and hit accept. And then it shows that it's syncing. Not that y'all can see it from back there. And then it shows I have a notification. You see that?
Kind of small.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Oh, it turned off.
Oh. Well, now the notification's gone. Darn it. All right, so the tile looks like that. And then the notification looks like that, and you can actually scroll down and hit the dismiss button. Oh, I guess there isn't a dismiss button. Okay. So that's kind of the limit of what you can do right now with the SDK. And then we have the remove. Which we do all the same things. We connect, or we get all the bands, we connect, and then we get the GUID, which it has to be the same GUID, which kind of prevents you from removing other tiles. And then we remove the tile async. Unique. So it'd be unique like the app ID. You'd have one per app. You wouldn't have one per device or something like that. Otherwise, if you uninstalled the app on your phone but left the tile there, reinstalled the app, and then it tried to publish the tile, you'd end up with 2 tiles, which could be problematic. And then I will show you some Android devices. I didn't think we'd have time to actually go into a demo for these. So there's Android Wear, which Samsung has a watch. There's a whole bunch of different Android Wears. There's the Moto X. There's rumor that they're going to support iOS in the future. I don't know why they would do that. It doesn't seem to benefit Google. You already have a bunch of app support for the watch through Google Play. They typically have longer battery life. Now the Apple Watch is about a day of active use, less than a day. A lot of them have heart rate monitors, things of that nature. They're different depending on the manufacturer. I would definitely recommend researching it, the different ones, and doing a comparison on your own. One of the other things to think about with the Android watches is that they're actually running an instance of Android on the watch as opposed to the Band and Apple Watch, which are dependent on the phone. There's the Pebble Watch, which works with Android and iOS. They have great battery life, but they're pretty simple. Bare bones apps. There's no touch screen. It's black and white only. Future versions will have color, microphone, and all that, but that's still to come. The Samsung Gear. Now, if you see a Samsung Galaxy Watch, that's an Android watch or an Android Wear. This is actually not even Android. So it's running Tizen, which is Samsung's own OS. And they have a lot of great reviews. They have speakers, microphones. Some of them even have their own SIM card, so you can actually make a phone call with the watch. That's pretty cool. I don't know. They don't support Windows phones, so you do have to have a specific set of Samsung phones that are compatible. So you can't use like well, let's see here. You couldn't use like a Motorola or an HTC. It has to be Samsung for it to work with the phone. So, and then there's the Fitbit Surge, which has some basic calling abilities. Battery life up to a week, so it's the best that I've seen. It's got step counter, floor moved, all that stuff. Tracks your sleep. I think it's water resistant, if I remember correctly. Better than the Apple Watch.
Oh, I ruined a Fitbit. Good one.
Oh, well. It's got basic notifications. It doesn't have apps. So that's... And then I threw this one here just for fun. I actually gave a talk a few months, or last year, about NFC, and Magic Band was kind of the topic. As far as wearables, if you're just doing like entries or like payment systems or something like that, this is kind of a neat idea. It doesn't require a battery. So if you wanted to like replace a name badge or something like this would be a great idea because it's got an NFC chip in it. It doesn't require a battery. It's very durable. It's waterproof. Waterproof, waterproof, waterproof. So you're not going to ruin it. I mean, you can cut it. But I still consider it a wearable. There's things like Google Glasses, which I didn't include in here since they've discontinued that. They're rebranding, redoing. HoloLens, which is a really neat idea. I don't know how wearable it is, like to go outside, because it's kind of big and heavy. You're not going to be doing a lot of activity with it. But it's really cool. Has anybody seen the videos for that? So it actually has augmented reality with like holograms. So it overlays like if I didn't have a display up here, I could put a television up here with HoloLens, but I could see everything else. So it's not like the Oculus Rift where all you see is what's outputted. So it's augmented reality. Some of the examples they had were like Minecraft. Like you could have like build Minecraft castles on top of tables or the stool, or it was really cool. And then kind of the Iron Man vibe. If you've seen the Iron Man where he's got the 3D controls and stuff like that, they had some of that going on with that too. So definitely go check that out. Does anybody want to share their experiences with wearables? Anybody at all? Anybody has a wearable? Anybody used a wearable? Anybody looked at a wearable? Besides tonight? Huh?
I broke a few Fitbits.
That's sad. Sad panda.
One of my friends had a couple.
Okay. Huh. So, yeah, as far as application, besides like the Magic Band and like telling time, which your phone already does, I think right now the only thing is like workout stuff is what I've seen is really good for.
I don't have anything for GPS. It just shows you the next direction. Not everybody has like phone holders all the time.
I know Apple Watch has a map, and it does have onboard GPS.
It does do that. How well it works, because it's not actually like 2 weeks out. Don't really know. But if you're like walking, it's supposed to like tap you on your wrist to like let you know when the next turn is in a certain way. How useful that is, I have no idea.
Google Glasses could do that, couldn't it?
I would imagine so, but I also don't want to spend $15 to find out.
Well, you can't anymore. unless you buy it secondhand.
Well, I'm sure there's a ton of them on eBay right now.
Hmm?
I'm sure there's a ton of them on eBay right now.
Yep. Anybody have any questions? Did you raise your hand? I saw it.
Okay.
No. Just scratching your nose? Okay. No questions? All right, so if anybody has anything they wanted to talk about afterwards, we're going to head over for a little bit to the flying saucer. Anybody wants to join us at all? Anybody? No? Okay. It's a work night, I know. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Oh, wait.
Thank you.
Anybody want?
You have to
My-
run installs.
Hmm?
You have to run updates.
I have to run updates. No.